preliminary conversation, right? This is just like the first of, if it's, I mean, it's kind of because of the other party is so big,
Correct.
and it just went through under such a big,
Right.
you know, upheaval.
Right.
This is a long shot, right?
It is. But the way I look at it, nothing else, and I've always looked at business this way, just by happenstance or my personality, is if we're two fish swimming in the same pond, we're going to bump into each other. So we can do it in a cordial, professional way, or we can do it in a hostile way. And if we build a relationship ahead of time, and I know what you're doing, and you know what I'm doing, we weren't fighting over the same minnow.
Yeah, well, from his standpoint, you're a lifeline, right? Because
right.
like,
Or maybe, yeah. Right.
Well, I mean, unless I'm wrong, like he and his advisors have no access to LPO.
Right.
And if by way of joining forces with you, now it becomes an option.
Potentially. Yeah.
That's not a lifeline, then.
Yeah. If they need it, right? There's plenty of custodians out there and BDs, but we'll see.
But in the independent space, I mean, that's kind of the one that they want.
When we bought HighPoint back in 2016, it was from our biggest competitor, and we were bumping into each other a lot in that small pond, because it is a small pond in the independent space. It's gotten bigger, but certainly in 2012 to 16, the LPL pond, keep using that analogy, was very small. And we were bumping into somebody who didn't really always play nice with others. So for us, it was, make friends. That's the way I worked. And it worked. Over years, we talked about merging, talked about coming together, and he was ready to sell. We were his call. He already knew us. We didn't have to go through the whole game.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you coming here, man. It's middle of the day. You've got a lot to do, and you have a business to run, and yet you're sitting here in my tiny office here in Oak Brook. I wish you could see more like
There's no place
what's
I'd rather
around
be,
you.
Rob.
Yeah, that's not true.
Well, you're a client, so the reality of it
I
is.
suppose.
Plus, you and I have good conversations. I enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, no, we definitely are subscribers to ADHD Monthly, so we're both in the club. I recognize. I had a hunch pretty much after maybe 7 minutes of talking to you, or maybe 70 seconds.
Yeah.
But it's funny you say you're a client, because I want, like, if I am, if I'm watching this for some reason, like I'm being held prisoner or captive and I'm being forced to watch it, you are definitely the person I'd have the hardest time describing what your connection is to me. So I'm going to take a stab at it. It's going to be like 8% right. And then if you could correct me so that people, if anyone watches, they can understand who in God's name you are and why we are sitting in a room together. So I'm going to take a stab at it. So you run an RIA firm. RIA stands for Registered Investment Advisory. We're already way too technical, and I want to be able to. That is nothing other than a place for independent financial advisors to take, I'm already wrong. It's a place for financial advisors to become independent financial advisors. So guys like me who come from a bank or a big wirehouse firm like a Merrill Lynch. And you provide a place for them to set up their practice and to make that transition and all of the dozens of logistical difficulties and challenges basically get set up, get up and running, so that the interruption for clients is as small as it can be. And in addition to that, part of those logistics is staying fully compliant with licensing and all of the dozens of laws and regulatory stuff that we have to abide by, and let us know when they change. Sure. They change all the time. So basically, you're like a really big, nice preschool teacher who keeps all the kids clean and provides diaper changes and lets when the toddler makes a mess, you help clean it up. And so you're basically a preschool teacher, right? Does that sound about right?
It does. It's actually not a terrible description. Martin and I used to say we're just we're high-end admins in a lot of ways, because exactly what you're doing, it's kind of managing.
Well, yeah, and I thought a preschool teacher because we're basically all just big giant babies who can't take care of themselves and want things the way they want. I'm like, right now, and someone help me because I need help, fixing this stuff. And you do a real good job of that, because without you and your setup, like I wouldn't be as doing as good a job for my clients as I could be, because I wouldn't be as happy because I would still be working for somebody else as
Sure.
opposed to working for myself. So
Sure.
you basically let people like me work for ourselves and do and run a business the way that we want to, all within the letter of the law. And we don't know what we don't know, and when
Sure.
we make this jump, and so thanks to you, I can do that.
Yeah, you're right on. That's a great description.
What I get wrong?
No, I wouldn't. I don't know that you got necessarily anything wrong. I think the only add-on I'd have, which is maybe the sort of glue that binds us together, which is from a regulatory standpoint, right? Because broker dealers and RIAs are self-regulated. We're not talking law. There's no federal or state law that governs what you do as an investment advisor outside of fiduciary responsibility. We can talk about separately. So everything is done under regulation or a compliance manual. You write a compliance manual, those are your rules, your regulations, and you're obligated to follow those. So our relationship, technically, our contractual relationship is as a supervisor. So our firm, Office of Supervisory Jurisdiction, or OSJ, is a technical term. It's an old NASD FINRA term from the 1940s. That is our relationship. So what I mean by that, your description was much more apt and much more detailed. But if a client wanted to find Rob Castneris and I haven't heard from him in weeks, and they call the SEC will call LPL will call me and say, "Where's Rob at? Why can't we get a hold of his client?"
Yeah, like why is he in jail?
That's
Like,
the
why-
regulatory standpoint.
Is he out of jail?
Right, exactly. And it goes for every aspect of what you do: your client communications, investment recommendations, your personal licensing, as you mentioned, your personal CE. All of your transactions as an investment advisor are supervised because it's the most highly regulated business underneath those regulations, under that compliance manual. And our job is to make sure you follow those. And that's upfront training, and then it's ongoing every day. Things you don't see behind the scenes. Every email you send is reviewed, not to catch you in anything, because that's not the case, but just understanding that these are the rules and regulations on communication or marketing or suitability. And we train on those, and then we audit them essentially on the day-to-day. So our relationship with you and every other what I would call clients in the group, because you are a client of ours, is of that regulatory nature. That's so kind of commoditized. You could pay anybody for that. You could even do it yourself in some circumstances. You could contract it out. You could hire it internally. I think generally speaking, we're an economical option if you look at it from a cost structure of doing it yourself or hiring it out, or our competitors. But we've built that into the business of the service and support that the relationships that you and I have created as you've grown your business is the next step of that. It's the next iteration of our business. It's the fun part. The regulatory side will always be there.
Yeah, you're like 20 years into this almost, right, or more.
Well, it's my 26th year in the business. I've been doing compliance for 24 of that, 18 for myself.
Yeah. So you've seen actual hundreds of financial advisors like start their practice from somewhere else,
Thousands.
come over under thousands.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Since I started, well over.
Yeah.
Probably in the close to 2,000.
So if there's anyone who's seen more success stories or horror stories on like how to do this job well,
success here's failure.
Right, and to like how to make people, how to do a good job for people who trust us with their money. Like, if there's anyone other than a financial advisor to recognize that, it's you, because you basically take what I've seen over the last 24 years and multiply that times 1,000.
Correct.
Because you've seen all the mistakes and the people, and then the people who do it really, really well.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, as you and I talk about a lot.
Yeah. And so the reason I was so psyched that you said yes, because this is really good timing, because as you know, like I've picked a specialty for my business, which is what I guess is called the sandwich generation. Also the name of this particular episode. The timing's perfect because I'm just going through this undertaking, and I'm also really excited about it because as recently as a few months ago, like I wasn't convinced that I needed a specialty, but I landed, and when I identified this one, it hit me like a ton of bricks because like I was just telling you earlier, like I didn't pick it because it's fun. I picked it because like I've lived through it, and I really firmly believe that I am the right person to help people through this particular set of challenges that happen at a very particular time of life. And so the sandwich generation, from a lexicon standpoint, is defined as people that are typically in their 40s to 60s who are simultaneously caring for elderly parents and raising children at the same time, right? And because that wasn't unique enough, my own particular subsect of this group of people is the Venn diagram between those people and people who are co-parenting after divorce, or people really trying to avoid divorce because they just can't get along about money. So, throw all these like three groups of people into a mishmash, and I've got some numbers to I'm very curious to see what you find, what you think of this AI research that Claude helped me with. And, some of it wasn't all Claude, but it wasn't all the internet. There's census data out there that I dug through that makes this problem even more interesting when you can find, sort of identify its scope, because it's bigger than I thought. It's also natural to me. I mean, you're like 3 months older than me, right? So like we are right smack dab in the middle of the people who are demographically in this group of people. The average age of a caregiver of elderly parents. Take a stab at it. Here's the first stat.
50?
It's 50.6,
Wow.
right? So, and so we're going to get there next year.
Right there.
And so I guess for starters, I mean, when I probably ran this idea by you like maybe a month or two ago, and without hearing any of the context or how I got arrived at this decision, like, do you think this is like a group of people that are in need of help from someone like me, or am I like fishing off of just the craziest pier ever, where there's never?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a percentage of them that are. Do they need help? Absolutely. 9 out of 10 of that 50.6 can't imagine, unless they're in that business of caretaking, they would know how to navigate both sides of that. I mean, parenting, there's books, but the reality of it is the roadmap is the one you create when it comes to parenting. But when it comes to the elderly side of that, yes, they do. And then the economical side, and it's complicated on both ends. And you've got, I mean, depending on the parents and their financial situation and your kids and like yourself and like running your business, they absolutely do. I think the problem is in our business, or yours specifically, is they still need to have money to spend to get that advice, whatever they need. They might need a good lawyer if there's no money there. But aside from that, if you're talking about the middle class or mass affluent that is willing to and understands it and recognizes they need help, I think there's absolutely a market out there. And you have the personal experience with it that a lot of people don't.
Yeah, and I want to specify this because even the first thing you said, right, was, do these people need help? And I want to make my contention really specific here, because if I'm thinking through this, just for starters, I think it's human nature. People don't like to concede that they need help. Yep. Right? So
absolutely. If
we're going to position it like that, do they need help? Maybe, right? But here's my contention very specifically, which is if you're in midlife and these particular this confluence of challenges are now in your on your plate, right? You are trying to build your career, raise your kids, either pre-divorce or post-divorce, and you are either in the throes of looking after a sick parent or a parent-in-law, or anticipating that, right? Because thoughtful people like to look ahead and
planning
see
for
very,
sure.
Maybe not too far down the road, like having, right? Can somebody do all of that? And if at face value, I'll say the answer is yes.
Sure.
Right? All right. Level 2. Can somebody do all of those things and do them well?
Right. Very few select people.
And yet the answer is yes, right?
I mean, you have to, right?
But here's where the rubber hits the road. I hate that expression, but for the purpose of my argument here, and in being an advisor in this space and thinking that there is a real need for this, is, can somebody do all those things, do them well, and not have it take a major toll on themselves?
Oh, no, I don't see how you could.
And that is to me.
You're sacrificing something, whether it be your personal, your physical health, your mental health, your career.
Yep.
There, you can name 50 things. You are sacrificing something.
So it's that. That's the cost, right? So if your own well-being is the cost, or maybe more likely your kids' well-being, right? Because maybe you get through it relatively unscathed.
Yeah. Would you sacrifice time somewhere?
But that bridge, and that bridge is going to break somewhere. Right, something's got to give. So either, your own well-being, or your kids, or your spouses, or your partners, or you're, maybe you run a business. God forbid, you're a
Right.
business owner and you're doing all those
Right.
things. You can do them all. You can do them all well, but someone's got to pay the tab for that. And so my argument is, I can help you make that tab less, right? By helping you identify and clarify this problem and ultimately solve it in a better way than you can by yourself. Not because you're not a smart,
Right.
successful
Sure.
individual, but because you never done it before. How
Right.
could you? And additionally, by the way, and no one wants to concede
Learning
this,
a new language.
both of these problems and both of these groups of people that make up this Venn diagram that need your help, whether it's your kids or your parents who are sick, this is a highly emotional
Oh, gosh, yeah.
problem,
Yep.
right?
Very
so
personal.
It yeah. So it almost makes it worse if you are a brilliant technician at your job, or you're just super well organized and you run a well-oiled machine. Got newsflash for you, man. Like that problem ain't gonna get solved
No.
with flowcharts or Six Sigma, man. Like, good luck. You are dealing with a person at the end of their life who is now facing the fact that, like, my health is going. I got my kid or my kid's wife or my kid's husband telling me what to do. I hate it all, and I'm being bossed around.
Right.
Right. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tough.
and then not to mention the kids piece, right, of all this. So,
I mean, it's interesting, and I said I learned a little bit about that last fall through a seminar. But what is a little interesting too, to put you back on your little couch there, is that not only are you have the skills for it because you've been through, you're dealing with it, you are part of that senior generation. You also want to, you have the personality to help. What I mean by that is, there are plenty of advisors, financial advisors, licensed advisors, probably in similar situations, whether they've had a divorce or not. That's an aside. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. They don't want to deal with it. They just want to manage the money. Like,
Yeah.
they'll meet with it, be like,
Do
wait,
that.
you got this complications. You're doing what for your parents on this? And no, like, I don't. That's so I'd say it's ripe for some reason. And I don't blame people on different sides of things. What do you get out of your everyday? Do you get a charge managing money, help people make money? Is it fulfilling a plan? What is it? If it's the emotion, what you're talking about is taking on some of that emotional toll for these clients. Not all of your advisors are willing to do that.
That's an interesting way of putting it. I don't look at it as taking it on the toll for them, although that's probably the end
Maybe
result.
you're alleviating
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, that you're right, and that ends up being the end result. It's just I don't look at it like that, even though it is accurate. And you're right. I think that most advisors are not interested in.
Well, they're not equipped to do it either. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, some are, but some are not. Some people walk in that situation and they don't. I don't know how to say it, but they don't really understand the emotion of the side of it. They just go straight to business. Be like, well, look at the numbers. Be like, the things you just said, like, caught in the middle and I'm being bossed around. It's
Yeah, right. And like all of the force in the world is not going to, unless you're just interested in, steamrolling your parents or your in-laws
Right.
and say, like, you will stay at this facility and that's the end of it, and
Right,
we'll
right.
come visit you.
I don't think I've ever talked to you about
three
that.
times a week.
Your mom and dad are retired?
No. So,
I don't know where you're at.
and that's another coincidence of this, right? Is that, like, it's not like I'm sitting here at 48 and dealing with a sick parent now. I have the, twisted word for it. I had the luxury of this happening to me 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's right. So, like, now I'm 20 years removed from having my mom pass away and having been in charge of her finances and, like, trying, I wasn't married or had, and I didn't have any kids at the time, but, like, now I'm 20 years removed from having done that. And then, so, like, being able to synthesize that with 20 years of a career of helping people, and then, like, joining the two, it's a perfect time to be able to do it. And I didn't sign up for that, right? Like, it just so happens that, and additionally, like, I'm going to be doing this for 20 more years plus. So, like, I'm at the perfect time in my life to be able to help people with this. And so, and yet I'm not a shrink. I would be a horrendous shrink, and I don't want to be a shrink.
That's
but
part of your job, though.
Yeah,
One way
it
or
is.
another.
But I also know how to talk to people and try and listen and understand problems that they don't even know either that they have or want to concede that they have, and that is what I do think, because I'm still convinced that nobody comes to a financial advisor and says, like, I can't do this, or like, they'll say, like, I shouldn't do this, or because it's a big ego bruise to say like, I've made all this money
Right.
and yet, I can't budget going to Costco, right?
Right.
Which, is sometimes what I hear. So,
Yeah, the behavioral finance side. I worked with a lady for a long time. She's retired now. She says she was a financial counselor. But that's my job. My job is to listen to your problems and help you solve your financial problems.
Yeah.
It's an older, the modern way of thinking is obviously more proactive instead of reactive. Hers is more of a reactive model.
Yeah, and that's true. Although I do think there's danger in positioning yourself, at least if you're an advisor, to position yourself as such. You're basically pitching the solution to a problem that people don't think that they have. So like, why even go there?
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm an advisor.
That's a tough sales pitch.
Who happens to end up solving problems, but like, you don't need to know that. At least, at least I'm not putting that on the damn brochure, right?
Right,
Of like,
right.
I'm not putting, I ain't putting people on a couch, right?
Yeah.
Or where, you get it. So, so some interesting things that I've, in researching this and I think part of this was like even justifying it to myself, right? Of like why I would pick this group. But some of the stuff that I found interesting that I want to bounce off you, just to see your take on, not just if I'm crazy or not, but how I'm thinking about it. And some of it's just, I know you like numbers like I do. So some of the stuff is, I think is just interesting from a raw math standpoint. But the four difficulties that the academic research suggests that that people are going to run into just by being part of the sandwich generation, right? Financial strain, you already touched on that, right? Time, I think this is the second most important one. I personally think this next one is the most impactful one, and they say burnout. I call it bandwidth. On any given day, there's a
result of the other.
There's only so much focus,
Right.
That anybody has, and only so much cognitive ability to like fix stuff in a given day.
Yeah.
So between your job and your kids and a parent who's sick and a divorce agreement that even if it's done, I challenge anyone to say like, yeah, I perfectly understand, my divorce agreement a year or 5 after
afterwards. Yeah.
Right. So, so burnout, or I call it burnout / bandwidth, because I that's the way that I look at that one. And then your career, right? So if you think of all the time that if you are in the sandwich generation and you are, any member of it, whether you're divorced or not, but you just happen to be, in your 40s or 50s or early 60s and either currently responsible or imminently responsible for looking after a sick parent and raising a kid, there's no getting around that your career will have an impact.
Absolutely.
Right? Because, even if you're getting all your tasks done, you can't put in any extra.
Can't.
There's no way.
Yeah.
And if you
Emotionally
you
drained.
could do it for a day, you could do it for a week,
Yep.
but you can't do it
Yep.
like we could in our 20s and your 30s, right?
Right.
Now compare that to somebody who's, 47, who doesn't have any kids and whose parents are perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that person's life is easy. That just means they have different challenges than
Different
these
problems
people.
every day.
So here's some cool census data that I'm excited to share to run by you. The number of divorced parents of minors in the U.S. You want me to share it? Share the range? You want to guess?
The number of
Yeah, divorced parents in the U.S. Yep. Of minors, right? So like someone's in their 80s and they're divorced, right? So 18 and under, and the parents of somebody 18 and under, and
15 million?
it's 8 to 10.
8 to 10 million?
Yeah,
Holy cow.
and even that was so you're better. Maybe you're just better at guessing this stuff than me. And now of course so we're here outside of Chicago. I was curious about this number for Illinois, right? And so all of the LLMs were very quick to point out like there's no specific data on this by state, because then I asked it to sort of find the Venn diagram of people that are divorced parents and
living.
who are in the sandwich generation and also co-parenting. And they did some extrapolation just based on national averages and the percentage of people in the generation that are to be divorced, multiplied by blah, 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 blah. And so I'm sorry, I skipped a step. So that number for people in Illinois is 300,000 to 400,000, right? So divorced parents in Illinois, 3 to 400,000. So then I wanted to know, like, all right, well, you know, you and I both
5% of the totals in one state.
Well, right. So, but you and I both know that's actually a good point. I didn't even think of that. So here we are, like 20 miles outside of Chicago. So, like, how much of that is the Chicagoland area, right?
Yeah.
Chicago and suburbs.
Yeah.
So, what to sort of make it the next extrapolation is there's 12 million people in Illinois, roughly 12 and a half. And the Chicagoland area, this was way higher than I thought, 9.5.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
They
about
take Chicago, probably where I live in Plainfield, which is kind of the end of the line going that way.
Yeah.
But
So 75%, right, roughly. So out of those 300,000 to 400,000 divorced parents of minors in Illinois, 3/4. So basically, we're looking at 2 to 300,000, 2 to 300,000 households of divorced parents in just the greater Chicagoland area. Way more than I wouldn't.
Yes.
I wouldn't have guessed half of that. Right. And so the overlap of that 300 to 400,000 that are both divorced parents and looking after a sick elderly parent, 18%. So if we take that $300,000 to $400,000 number, people number,
50 to
18% are doing
60,000.
both, right? So now we're looking at 60, 70,000
Right.
households that are dealing with them both.
Wow.
Right. So like that to me,
It's just an interesting kind of study in that.
just to think of, right? And again, that, you know, so some of this data was from just the Census Bureau. Some of it was from Pew, who does that
sure.
data.
Yeah.
And then some of it is like a University of Michigan study, right? So if I'm really poorly citing sources, like they're, you know, there they are. But like if we're really identifying the people that are really, really in the weeds, like doing
Gives
both,
you a pretty
right?
good marketing pool.
Yeah, the 60,000 people, you know, 60,000.
You're
I
looking
guess
for 50 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, those are the people that are at like max midlife difficulty, right? I'm divorced, I'm trying to raise a kid, and I've got one or more parents who are sick, and I have at least 10 years, 5 years left
Right.
in my career,
Right.
right? So now the very specific problem that I'm trying to help people solve is
More people out there than you think. You're not alone.
yeah, it's not can you do this? Yeah, of course you can do it, right? Because you have to. But can you do it? Can you do it well?
Yeah.
And can you do it and leave a little bit for yourself? That's it. So that I think that to me is and it's taken me thinking about this for every bit of probably
Might need to
like
write a book.
8 weeks to like understand this problem, like, and be able to.
Has anybody written
articulate
a guidebook on that? How to navigate that sandwich generation?
Oh man. There's definitely what I've read about it though. I haven't read any full. I just read passages on it and some of the research. It really is more identifying the problem as opposed to like anecdotal. Like, here's the problem and here's how I worked my way through it.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the many reasons that I wanted to talk to you about this is like, let's take a practical application of somebody looking after a elderly parent and their finances, right? So where I go to power of attorney for that. So I imagine you've had dozens of instances where there's been some either contention or like friction in the court, or not even in the court, but just based on what's legally in place for somebody to be able to look after a parent financially,
Sure.
right? So power of attorney to me is where this starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because let's walk people through it. So in order for an adult to have power of attorney over their parents' finances, right? So if you live in Illinois, you've got to get a power of attorney, with the Illinois power of attorney form. It's got to be notarized. And then, you know, here at FLPL is where, you know, the parent's money is. Now you've got to submit that form along with an LPL form to enact power of attorney on that person's accounts, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I would, one thing I'd just take a step back. That's all, and it's probably too past to discuss there, but that's based on the assumption that the parent has the cognitive ability to give power of attorney. So you're
that's
getting
right.
out of this ahead of time. While whoever the parent, whoever the situation is, they're of the right frame of mind where they have the ability to give you power of attorney, because that's a big deal. You know, people sometimes kind of take it loosely, but you've given somebody access and control of everything in your life. Now, granted, you can limit it in the power of attorney, but in the vast majority of just general power of attorneys, they can go take out a loan in your name. They could buy a car. They could sell your car. They could sell your house. So if you have the cognitive ability. Sorry to
No, I'm glad
detract
you brought that
there,
up
but-
because, like, I think I skipped a big step there because I always thought that I was fairly proactive in like pounding the table and having people get power of attorney set up for this particular reason.
It's good.
But and after when you say that, now I'm thinking like I don't think that I hit it hard enough, because the nightmare scenario that we're trying to avoid by doing this is good luck getting control of your parents' finances if they don't have the cognitive ability to appoint.
They're in a coma.
I don't have the slightest clue what happens
Yeah,
in
you
that
do.
spot,
It's a
but you do.
challenge.
So
Yeah.
can you walk me through this for like a
We've
minute
seen
or
it.
two?
Certainly, it's going to be your local court. It's a court order. You have to go in front of a judge, and it's a filing a suit, essentially a case saying it really becomes almost a guardianship at that
I was
point.
just going to say that
A
word.
judge
yeah.
is really going to grant guardianship, which then sort of like leads into power of attorney. I've seen both. I've seen it where the judge says, this is temporary. We're not going to make you a guardian or temporary. We're just going to allow the power of attorney to approved, and the
Oh, my
court's just
God.
essentially giving it. But you have to give the case in front of a court. And in my personal experience, which is fairly limited, fortunately, it's on my business side, not my personal life side. Things happen quickly at that point. So there's a car accident. All of a sudden, dad's in a coma, and you don't have power of attorney. Courts don't work that quickly. There's no, TV is like an immediate no. You're going to file with the court. If you live in Cook County or any of the big counties, maybe if you live in a small county in southern Illinois, you could be in court on Monday, but you're weeks out sometimes.
Yeah, so you're going to get the court date you're given, and
We've seen circumstances where there's like an immediate scenario, something needs to get taken care of, but it's very temporary. We've seen judge grant it in a couple of days, but for the actual long term, it's going to take some time.
Okay. So in those cases where, let's say a judge says no, and so, 45-year-old petitions the court and says, my mom has slipped into a coma. She cannot handle her own finances. She did not name anybody power of attorney. Right? And so now, so let's play this out. Let's say that her mom's account is at HighPoint and with one of your advisors. Okay, advisor directs them to you, right? And so then you are now explaining to this person, like, and let's say you live in Cook County. You're going to have to go petition.
Yeah.
Right?
Highly recommend hiring an attorney. They're going to know the process a lot better, smoothly than you.
Step one. So now,
Yeah.
and here's another point that
Who's paying for that? You're paying for that, right? You can get reimbursed from the future estate or your parents' account,
Yeah.
but you don't have.
But here's the thing: why when I'm proactive about this stuff, like I often wonder, like, am I pushing this too hard? Am I being Debbie Downer because no one wants to deal with really unpleasant scenarios like this? But like,
Part of your job.
yeah,
though.
yeah, it really is, because in this case, going back to this 45-year-old and like their mom has slipped into a coma. Yeah, it's sort of obvious to you and me that one of the first steps there is to get an attorney to help navigate this.
But people
My
wouldn't
point
think
is,
that.
when you're under duress like that, and
Oh.
like your world is just upside
Yeah.
down, that's your mind does not go there,
Right.
And it only goes there if somebody like you or a smart friend tells you that getting an attorney is necessary. God forbid somebody in their ear says like, "Oh no, you don't need an attorney,"
You're
right?
just going to show up at court and try to file in Cook County, like
Yeah,
an appellate court or something. I don't even know where you'd go, the local courthouse, and like to file a motion for a power of attorney guardianship. Be like, okay,
yeah.
show up next Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Like,
So then now let's fast forward to like that. They get lucky enough to see a judge within 2 weeks, but the judge says no.
Right.
What now? What?
you're stuck. I don't know that a judge would say no. I can't imagine that scenario. They would probably two things would happen. One, they would ask for more information. That's a potential, like, hey, who are you? You showed up with your driver's license, prove to me and burst it to something. That would probably be number one. And then there may be a waiting period, almost like a probate. Like, we're going to wait 2 weeks.
Geez.
We're going to make it public. The court filings are public. If nobody shows up saying anything different, then we'll grant it to you.
And then that person says, I'm the only child. Nobody else could possibly. And the
Yeah.
judge says, like, too bad.
You know what, though, on that note, Rob, I can actually talk about a specific scenario. So, and it was due to an accident that the client of the advisor lives in New York, and she got into a bad car accident and wasn't even sure they were going to survive at first. She was a divorced mother. The divorced father, her husband, was not around, gone. 2 kids, I think 13 and 11 or something like that. The court appointed it was a guardian, but it wasn't family. It was like an institutional guardian is probably the best way to describe it, like a trust company. I only learned this, now maybe this is a New York process, certainly getting out of my depth a little bit here, but the advisor reached out to me, We went to LPL and accounts were frozen. Nothing you could do. This person was an individual on their own IRA, their own individual account, their own trust. The successor trustee of the trust was never updated it to the father of the children and husband, who is no longer around. Gone. Alive as far as I know, but no contact in whatsoever. So no help. That was the only successor trustee. Benefits of the trust for the children. Whoever it was, I think it was a doctor-driven, no, it was a social worker actually, went and said, we need to go to court for this. This was like Friday. It took about 3 weeks. So we were in communication for a couple of weeks with one of her friends that reached out and said she has an account, said the kids, I'm watching her kids currently, whether she's going to make it through this accident. She did end up making it, but she's permanently disabled. But the judge declared a corporate guardianship. So it was a company out of New York that got paid. They weren't doing this for free, that they became the guardian of her account. So they essentially became the power of attorney. We got all the paperwork, which is sort of legal, kind of like court documents that stated some so-and-so bank and trust company is going to be managing her accounts and affairs. And they became the successor trustee. They updated the trust. So they were essentially the power of attorney on a trust, and then took care of the kids. And ultimately, they depleted the accounts over time, so it didn't matter for the advisor. But it was a weird scenario, and I don't know how you would have solved that unless you had a friend or you were more proactive and put in what I would call like an institutional executor or institutional trustee, which you can do. There's plenty of dedicated companies out there that do just that.
Yeah, but the thing is, nobody does any of that stuff until they're in that
Right.
situation, and
Yep.
It's dire straits. So this is a perfect segue into
Well, no life insurance. Again, she survived, but if she didn't survive, she had no life insurance. She had some saved assets, a fair amount for her kids. You can't control that, but term life insurance is pretty cheap. I could have bought a $2 million policy, and her children would have been taken care of.
Yeah, but I think the key part there though is that they didn't name anybody
Or update.
to play quarterback to make sure that the kids got what they were supposed to get when they were supposed to get it, and it's avoidable.
Yes, very avoidable.
And yet,
with minimal planning, minimal cost.
Yeah. So let's brainstorm through here. If someone were to, wonder, what are a couple of quick and easy things that I can do to prevent this stuff, from the parenting end of things. And, to me, I think it starts, I guess, as early as becoming a parent. Think how easy it would be on, LegalZoom or Will and Trust.
Yeah.
To just name or to just draw up the most basic of living trust. That basically that's simply just going to point out to everybody, if something happens to me, here are the 3 people, their names and addresses, of who's supposed to look after this kid, and here are the financial accounts, and here is what they're supposed to get and when.
Yeah.
Right? Because, for a young kid, you don't want to give them life insurance policy proceeds when they're 18.
Right.
Because,
Yeah. Put it into a
how
trust.
that would go. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think from the general public's perception, and probably for most new advisors, the level of difficulty of getting all this done probably seems really high. But you and I know that
It's not.
that could be an hour and a half in some forms.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do think that part of why people don't do this, even though it makes all the logical sense to do it, is that, frankly, I think people don't do it because even though they know the probability of something like this happening is so low, despite the stakes being so high of
Right.
and the cost of being wrong, if it does happen, honestly, I think the primary motivator for people not doing it, it's just too unpleasant to deal with.
Yes. Yep.
Right? I got to think about being in a
Yeah.
coma. I'm not doing that.
Yep.
Or if I'm going to do it, I'll do it next week. Or I'll
Right.
do it next
Yeah,
month.
yeah. Yes.
Right? And so I do think, a catalyst for people to start paying attention to stuff simply is one, just becoming a parent, because, hopefully you never get divorced, but,
Right.
if you do, at least there's something in place that is going to point out to the world where, basically I explain it to clients as a trust being nothing other than a giant instruction manual, right?
Yeah.
And a will is an instruction manual for what, points out what happens when you die.
Right.
But a trust is so much more useful because it also, not only does it give the world an instruction manual for when you die, it also provides that manual for what if you're not dead, but you're in a coma.
What's
or if
interesting, and you just kind of hit the core of it. It's if you like describe what a financial advisor's job is, you could probably ask Claude or something. And they'll give you, to give advice, suitability, manage money. But it's right there in most of your clients' lives in your job. Some of them have an attorney, if you call that a loose attorney. If they're a business owner, maybe they have a relationship with an attorney. But even successful, wealthy families have maybe a law firm that they know, maybe one attorney they deal with. But that's just an individual that they meet with once in a very rare while.
On as needed basis.
Same as your accountant. That's going to be a relationship you have. It's kind of transactional. You move on. They might have a better relationship. But their attorney, if they have one, I came from a family that didn't have an attorney or a financial advisor. They wouldn't have even known. And they were probably, I wouldn't say probably, I can give you specific examples in my family. They were afraid of that. They were afraid that someone was going to take them or hurt them or screw them. They didn't understand the logic of it. My point in that is financial advisors, an ongoing, in the modern day financial service, I'm not talking the old sales model. In a modern day planning world, a financial advisor is that relationship. You're talking to your clients certainly more than their attorney account if they have an attorney, and probably just about as much as anybody other than a close friend, at least in meetings, whether it be phone calls, face-to-faces or whatever, and you can mention those things. And if there's a trust there, which there would be if you're a financial advisor, they'll understand that. Again, that's something a lot of financial advisors do not want to touch. I'll manage you're going to roll over your 401k. I'm going to manage it. We're going to help you retire as a back of the neck and plan, but they're not getting involved in it. Yeah, you should do that. You should have a death and disability plan, whether it be a trust or a will or a combination of both. It's interesting, but you're in the right place to do it. I'll give you just an example. In my house, I was talking about when my dad had passed, which is similar on timing. My dad passed about 20 years ago. Little over. My mom was in the house by herself. The house was in her name. And when I was starting to understand a little bit, just learning, I didn't go to, like you, I didn't go to law school or even really business school, but basic business school, was understand like a transfer on death. And I explained it to her when I learned. I said, in Illinois, if you die with an asset worth over a certain dollar amount, $100,000, it's going to go to probate unless it's direct beneficiary. And my mom was just like, no, it's in the will. I'll give, and she just didn't understand. And then I think the thought of it was just like, well, is someone going to take my house? Like that was truly the mindset of it. It wasn't, and it wasn't until many years later, probably 10 years later, probably about 10 years ago, that she was old enough to the point where she knew she needed some more help. And there was just a distrust of anybody with education or authority. It was just a natural distrust of maybe a me versus you generation of like, I'm the working generation. Those lawyers are up there in an ivory tower, the financial advisor. The financial advisor is always going to shoot. My in-laws, like 3 times they worked with a financial advisor and they held a mutual fund for less than a year and lost every time. And I don't know who the financial advisor was. It was actually their State Farm broker. Sold them a mutual fund, got a commission. Didn't really care if they sold it after a year, but there was no plan to it. So in their eyes, they're like, well, you never make money in the stock market. And, it's a longevity thing, right? But it was just a mindset of it. And not in a bad way. I mean, my parents are great parents. My in-laws are great people, super hardworking. And my parents didn't finish college. My in-laws did, but just a different mindset. They were afraid of that. That was not, my in-laws ran a business for quite a while. They were renting properties and were just so bucking anytime any gave them advice. And not that it was pride, not that they're both smart people, but it was a detriment of them, not listening to other people that were truly looking out for them, but they thought they weren't. They thought they were trying to take advantage of them. It's just a weird mindset and different generation, right? And that hopefully changes, but nobody in my family grew up with money. So you never had to worry about those things.
Yeah, in your example, because one thing I've noticed over the years, and I think it probably happened in that example when you're talking to your mom, is something that I think, and I strongly believe adds to that disconnect and the distrust is jargon. And which,
for sure.
What industry has more
No,
useless?
ours is the worst. It's like we make up terms weekly.
Yeah, right. So like, I'm telling you, the more I think about it, I think one of the most useful things that a financial advisor can do is play translator, right? Of like,
in a non-condescending way.
It's yep. And so, yeah,
which
exactly.
isn't always easy. Some of it isn't intentional, right? It's when you do something, when you do a Roth IRA conversion every day or back to a Roth every day, it becomes unintentionally condescending because it's just rote. It's just easy. But I'll tell my wife about those things. I'll recognize sometimes when I'm saying something. My wife's super smart, smarter than me. But when it comes to that, there's certain times I can see it in her eyes. Like she feels like I'm talking down to her. It isn't intentional. It's just a comfort and confidence of what you're dealing with. But
yeah, and you notice like in the body language, right?
Yes.
Like you say a word, it's automatic pullback. Like,
yep.
I do,
shut down.
I'm not listening to this,
Right.
right? And in your example,
You've insulted me or whatever.
Yeah, right. Or you just gave me reason to to either pull away from this conversation or in the context of sitting with a financial advisor, it's like, dude, these people are you have 6 strikes against you, right? When you sit with them, right? So like, why are you giving
you're
them
in such
more?
a deep hole.
Why are you giving them more, right? And so in your example that you mentioned with your mom, you said the word probate.
Yeah.
Holy cow! If that's to me, that's like the perfect word to signal to somebody that you are using words that damn well they don't understand.
Right.
And so and I've just backed into that with like living trust and a will. Like everyone knows what a will is, but when you say living trust, I think that's just like automatic turnoff.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So then when I try and I am trying to like extol the praises of the utility of somebody having a living trust, I will quickly back away from that word. I'll say the word and I'll say, by the way, that is nothing other than a giant instruction manual for your life.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows what a damn instruction manual
Sure.
is, right? And the difference between, so the natural and say like, well, I have a will. Like, isn't that the same?
Right.
I was like, yeah, it's close. But, a living trust is the manual for I'll start with the will. Like a will is the manual for what happens when you die, who gets what, and call it a day. Sayonara. And the other one is the manual for what happens not just when you die, but when you are unable to act on your own behalf.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not fun to
Disabled.
think about.
Oh.
And I will position this. This is almost, it's a little bit of trickery, and I'll say, yeah, if you're going to go down this road, it's going to make you answer a bunch of questions that are unpleasant, and it usually takes people no less than 6 months. And some people will hear that and say like, well, I can do it sooner than that. I'm like, oh, great, So which I'm thinking like, I hope you do.
Yeah, but
right?
people don't.
And then they'll say like, well, why does it take 6 months? And I'll say, well, it could be done in 15 minutes if you if you just print out the form, but like you're going to be asked like who are the 3 people in order that are going to look after your kids, right? If you can't, right? Does that sound like a lot of fun to consider? No. Right? And then and then you want to memorialize it by putting down their names, addresses, and phone numbers and emails. Like that's too official.
Yep.
Right. So that's just
Takes
human
time.
nature.
You need a breather.
So that's again 6 months.
I did it. My wife and I did it about 4 years ago. It was maybe even 5 years ago now. It was kind of early in the pandemic, and it took about 6 months.
Yeah.
We had a phone call that was laid out with an attorney, laid out kind of the basic, in their eyes, the estate plan. Who's going to have your kids? Where's your money going to go? How are you going to fund the trust? Things like that. Laid that out, and then it was like probably a week of letting that set in before we even took the next step. We were just like, oh, wow, that was a lot. And then, I'm a procrastinator, but it's probably the ADHD. When I'm ready to do something, I'm just hyper-focused. Let's just get it done. So we started the process up again, and he'd given us essentially like an intake form. It was we called it a mind map, and it was filling in all these gaps. And then it got down to the will stuff, like who gets your wedding ring and things like that. And those are relatively easy, I think, as a parent. Like I'm an old car guy. I have a couple old cars. Like, hey, that's easy. They don't have a lot of value. But when it came to like who's going to manage your money and who's going to watch your kids, 5 years ago, our kids were even younger, obviously. It would have been a lot. And when we had it down, we knew who that would be. But the people who are going to watch our kids were not the people that manage money. They're two art-brained people that just don't think about that kind of stuff. So I'm like, we need somebody else to be able to do this. And the funny thing about that is, it changed with us because the trustee went through a divorce and life changed. So I'm glad that we updated it. He was no longer in a position that he would have been able to do it. He's the right person in a lot of ways, but if it was any time in the last 3 years for the next 7, he couldn't take on that responsibility. And we recognized that and updated it. But yeah, it took 6 months before we finally got the mind map done. And then we were sitting there. Fortunately, it beat us down enough. We were sitting in the room with the attorney that it was less emotional at that point. And you started talking about these things because we'd gone through it enough.
Yeah, he probably desensitized you.
Yeah.
Those 6 months probably just it's like by that point it's just like
Yeah, but I'll tell you the peace of mind we left. The attorney we worked with this in the city, his old friend, and we left there, and it gave you some confidence, and it opened up your world, at least to me, to people you trust, like a couple of my brothers and my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law. Like, this is who we are. This is what we have. And if something happens to us, I would expect you. I would count on you to take care of my family. It's a little liberating in some ways too, though. You know what I mean? You're not just.
Yep.
It's scary because we're all private people to a certain extent. Whether, there's points in my life where I had a negative balance in my bank account and credit card debt that it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then there's points in my time where you look at my bank account and you're like, "Boy, this guy's doing really well." So it's a combination of both those. Sharing that with people's heart. I couldn't have done that in my early 20s. I would have been like, I got plenty of money in the bank, and I don't, it's negative $1,000. That's just maturity and age.
Yeah, and generational too, right? Like,
Yeah.
good luck. I haven't. Let's think about this. If somebody's already in their 70s and they're in their generation of like privacy is number one.
Yes.
Right, and you don't.
And shield your kids from bad or good. They
Yeah,
don't know.
and there's a huge stigma just talking around money in general, right? Like getting those people to put all of their financial instruments and accounts, right? We're in our 40s and like it's still not fun, but for them it's like
I'm sure you deal with this all the
like,
time. I don't, because not being the advisor side, but I can tell you, it's interrupt you, is on like, again, I'll refer to my in-laws. My mother-in-law has got money in 3 different banks. So not wealthy people. She's just got relationship issues. Nobody in our family, nobody in her life, including her husband, he could probably name one of the banks. Name the bank.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Not only do they not know the balances,
No,
or like,
zero. Don't even know the name of the banks.
You don't need to know.
Yeah. Hopefully she's got physical statements, but
I'm not even going to tell you what state this bank is in.
And my wife and I were talking about it. My father-in-law had a small accident. He's okay. He was in the hospital for a couple hours, an ER visit, but he's fine. But while we were there, they were asking for medications and things, and we didn't even have that. And my wife is kind of the matriarch of our family. She's going through health issues, so but in her family, she's the most responsible of the 3 kids. In a point in her life, she's really good at organizing, like as German as can be. So you give her 20 things, and they will look perfectly organized. And she finally said to her mother, and she's like, "We don't know anything." Like, and I'm not here. And I think it's a distrust. Her mom, just as my mom thinks, like, you want to get at my money or something like that. And it's so far the opposite. You don't want to be burdened, and you shouldn't burden your children with your death. Yeah. That was finally how I got through with my mom on their various things. I said, if you die today, let me walk you through, because now this is something I do all the time. The headaches that your family's going to go through. Do you want that to be the case? Do you want your daughter, who you're closest with, to have to deal with these headaches while dealing with the emotional strain of you passing away, going through the life that we've lived together, like all of those things, and how are we going to move on? And by the way, she's got to show up in probate court and out of her own money, because we don't have access to your money. There isn't any money there, but to pay the attorneys to go through probate. Otherwise, your house, which is probably worth $200,000, is going to go somewhere, but not to. And even if you want to give it to charity, and that's what I said. I was like, Mom, take your kids out of it. Your kids are all successful. They don't need it. If you'd like to give your house to charity, then let's do that. Let's put a transfer on death to AmVets or whatever you like. And it did finally resonate with her. My mother-in-law has been a little bit more challenging. They're just very, and I understand it's that generation. They were raised that way as well.
It's super powerful. It's as powerful as trying to convince a Gen Z kid that it's okay to not look at your phone for 6 hours. Right? They look
What's
at
the
you
Gen Z?
like,
Give me the age group.
Like,
What's the Gen Z?
Gen Z.
I'm trying to think if my youngest is in the
Ethan, help me out here, buddy. You are Gen Z, so I know for sure it's if you born 2010, 12. Yeah, and then the cutoff on the other side is probably 2012. Because I think
we're in
read
after
this, and
2010.
I couldn't help but laugh. Just Gen Omega, the next generation, which just bonkers. They ran out of letters.
Maybe call it 2010 to simplify. Maybe it's the iPhone generation is probably what defines that. It is the handheld. My oldest, who's born in 2007, is never
not had one.
Yeah, never not known that world.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gen Z is from 1997 to 2012. And I'll go to the 90s.
You are a card-carrying member. You're right in the middle of that that cluster there.
He looks like he's 18.
But,
I'm 24.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's just it. Like that's how powerful the the mindset and mentality of the stuff that you believe in the most, right? Which is for your parents, our parents' generation is privacy.
Oh yeah.
And
pride. Even if you were, I'm gonna pick on my in-laws. I don't mean to pick on them in a bad way. Is even when their business was failing, they blinded themselves to it. They didn't, they never really sat down with their kids and were explaining Like, hey, we might have to file bankruptcy sort of thing. Like, what's going on? Like, we thought you were doing really well sort of thing. And it wasn't, it's pride. And I get that. Hey, we all have that. I was going to go back to something I was talking about when I heard about the sandwich generation. It was at a presentation we held, the forum that we host. I'm not going to quote any of this because it's been a while. What was really amazing to me was, and I don't know who did the study, it was like Pew or something like that, but they had really good data on how various generations want to interact with services. And I say services meaning like
Plumber.
no, professional services like legal, accounting, and financial advice.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
even medical. But it was wild to
Why
see.
did I think of a plumber?
I know,
Dude,
but I mean that is a service. I said service, but I was leaning
Anyway,
towards right.
sorry.
But it was I'm going to call proactive services, so planning and things. It was just really
professional services, maybe?
Professional
So-
services. It was really interesting, and again, I'll have to get the slides for you because I think you'd find this. I will get the slides for you. But just talking about even like that Gen Z, they don't want to meet in person, but they're
Oh, yeah,
but
they don't.
but they talked about how trusting they were in a lot of ways because they're used to just things just kind of working. You look on an app and it's just there. It's just trusting. They give your credit card, and it was really interesting when they interviewed, when they looked at how they're getting advice. It was a lot of it was virtual, but they do want people. It was our generation a lot, the generation
We're Gen X.
Gen X. That was like the big gap in we can do it ourselves. Like when they looked at the study, they said we
Really?
don't. Yes, there was a lot of people that's like, well, I don't really need my dad's old stodgy, gray-haired financial advisor.
Yeah.
Like I have
Oh,
resources.
we're
to
talking
this.
about professional services.
Yeah,
Okay.
professionals. Yeah, they were just like, why do I? It was really interesting. And then they were talking about again, like the baby boomer generation, where everything was handshake face to face. Like we're going to sit down and discuss this. But he really had those really good stats on all those different aspects of the generations. And when he said it, and again, this was just somebody speaking other data, you were like, this all resonates. Like, yes, this is right on. We're all like, the aha moment was there. And that's when he talked about the sandwich generation. And I was sitting in that room and I was like, holy cow, I hadn't heard it described that way. I said, but I am living this as we speak on both my side and my wife's parents' side, you know? Like,
But I wonder what that progression of that is because Gen X, if we are more inclined to, because I would have put that on the millennials.
yeah.
I mean, I think they invented the DIY acronym that is on YouTube
Yeah, maybe
everywhere.
it's the youngest side of the of our generation.
Yeah,
here,
but
Gen
no.
X.
I mean, look, the data is the data. But like, if the millennials are most inclined to solve it themselves, my own impression of the biggest difference between, I think the differences are fairly subtle between our generation and the millennials. I think they're big on optimizing because I think that they've got. That's probably not true. I think we're. I guess I haven't thought this through all the way, but there are some clear differences between millennials and Gen. I'm gonna look. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I can
but
give you some.
But Gen Z is okay. Wait, millennials because millennials. I mean, they really are just one generation behind us.
Right. Yeah.
So what stands
I mean,
out? I can't,
and mine is
think of.
completely personal and it's completely biased
go.
because I came up from a very blue collar family of thriving for success via work ethic. The advantage that I had over my parents was was driven the work ethic because we had nothing. Everything we truly had to work for because we had nothing, was to add in education for that. That's your your growth factor, the growth multiplier in there was the education side.
That's a millennial hallmark or
No,
ours?
I'd say that when my gap is the millennials is they don't have that, and it's blame whoever you want for it. There's a big gap in they're smart, educated, way smarter, oftentimes understand how the world works faster, certainly than me and my generation, but they don't want to have to work for it. That's just been my personal experience. Now I don't want to. I'm going to piss off a whole generation of millennials.
Yeah, you're
but by and
you're gonna have
large,
an army
in,
of people.
in my personal experience, and this is as a business owner, it's not that they don't want to work; they want to work differently and more efficiently. I think your word of optimizing wasn't necessarily a bad one. The first employee we ever hired was a perfect example. He's born in whatever, 95 or 96.
Yeah, millennials are not. It's I know that the high end, the old age end of that is 82 to about. I guess then whenever Gen Z starts, 95.
Yeah, okay. So this is a perfect guy. He was in like the early 90s when he was born. And super smart guy. All he did every day was just try. And I love the efficiencies in it. Was to try to get out of work to get things working. unfortunately, we're in a service business. There's only so much you can do. There's certain things you just have to pick up the phone and you just have to pull out the computer. But that's just been my personal experience on it. That being said, if somebody who's way smarter than me, more educated, and is able to find efficiency, I'm all for that. There are certain things he did that made us more efficient, but at the end of the day, he just didn't really want to work. And I don't begrudge him for that, but that was kind of his thing, was like 40 hours a week is like, that's crazy. He's like, I'm gonna give up half my life and sitting in an office. I didn't know any better, and part of me is like, well, yeah, I'm kind of jealous that you have this mindset. I have one other example of an Indian advisor, immigrant. She's probably 67 or 68 this year. She's been here about 35 years. She had kids a little bit later in life, but she came to America, and it was run your business, just work. Her and her husband both, and they did.
Just work your face off until,
for the next generation.
Yeah.
And now both her kids have graduated college, good, they're successful, went to University of Chicago, very smart, successful people. And she's like, they don't want to work. It's like, my daughter wants a job where she loves kayaking, being on the water. She's like, my daughter wants to be on the river 30 hours a week, and she'll work the rest of the time. So it's just so wild. Her mom is just, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand.
But how can she? Her whole life experience is,
So when I
7
say
days
my
a
comment
week.
about it's that's not fair for me to use that opinion of, because where I grew up in a different world. My kids will have a different perspective on the world because they've never wanted for anything. They've always had everything they need and want to a certain extent, sometimes too much.
Yeah. I'm curious if your experience with your mom is going to support this theory that I have, that I've noticed. I have some close friends in my life, and I've noticed this with a couple of clients, and and it's pertaining to friction in dealing with their parents who are either sick or very sick, I guess, and or even in the conversation of like preemptively planning for them getting sick, like trying to convince parents to downsize and to scale down, go live in a ranch, right? Because so, and the takeaway that I got from all of these,
to plan ahead,
and how all of these conversations went, and the friction that ended up as a result, is the conclusion the only conclusion I can draw that makes it this theory is that people in our parents' generation do not want to be told what to do by their kids.
Yep.
Particularly taking advice from their kids.
Yes.
Right. It's just like, I brought you into this world. I'll be damned if I'm gonna take listen to you as to where I should live.
Right.
That's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
Right.
Right. And and even if they know that the advice is right, I think it's there's like a chip in there, right, to like direct them the other way.
Yeah.
Did you run into some of this stuff with your
more with my in-laws on that side of things. It depends on where it's coming from. What we've learned how to navigate is, I'll actually go back because there's something interesting on my mother with that. She's still alive, by the way, but on my in-laws side, we learned to navigate 3 kids in that family, that the youngest son, they'll listen to him. He's in a different business altogether. He has no understanding of this, nor desire for any of this, but they'll listen to him. So we just have to load them up. So when the conversation has to happen, like my in-laws are a perfect example about downsizing, about moving and going into a ranch, all the things you were saying, before it's too late, before you can't walk upstairs, plan for not having to walk upstairs. And it was him. He understood it, and he could sit down and listen to him. It was my wife. They wouldn't have, she could have said the sky was blue, and they would have said, nope, it's not.
Here's another theory. This could get me into some hot water too, is, or maybe you into some hot water. I find that the sibling who's most likely to get the ear of their parents is the one with the least amount of acumen, or the one, and that this could be like the ivory tower thing that some of this theory is, maybe that's like the underdog. This one needed the most help, and maybe this one's the least of a threat to my
That's
my
probably
ego
what it
and
is.
pride.
That's a great word.
So I'm most likely to listen to that person.
Yep.
But I've just found the person with and I'm thinking about this through with my clients too. My clients who are baby boomers, they just had horrible experience with their own parents when they were the most accomplished one in their family, trying to dispel advice. Their parents just did the opposite. So
it's funny because I would say, and I'm one of 5 kids. My mom had 5 children. My mom and dad. Is that I have a couple of half brothers, but in my case, I was unfortunate to be in a family of very smart people. So I am the 5th smartest in my family. So
you both.
I have the least acumen by far, but because of my job and what I do, I'm just more knowledgeable about those things. So she bucked it just because of that. Fortunately, my sister is such a
Oh, like you're one of them fancy finance
Yeah.
people. So I'm not listening. I'm not listening. You get out of here, Craig.
Yeah, exactly.
Go
Yeah,
get
yeah.
your brother.
Like,
I'm not.
But my youngest sister, so it was 4 boys and then a girl. She's a bull in a china shop. She's very hard headed. She's also very smart. So she could beat my mom down to the point where she was like, "You understand? This is what we're doing." Kind of like, maybe you don't want to, but I always we have a devil's advocate a lot of times, and she was oftentimes a good cop, bad cop. She was the one that could.
Yeah. So I
But
mean,
I always just sorry to interrupt you, but I always
No.
joke with my brother-in-law, who I'm pretty close with, my wife's sister's husband, and say, because we deal with that. He's in the same boat. Got 2 parents. They're kind of stubborn, and fortunately, his parents have a couple of pensions and saved well, so financially they're okay. On my side, my mom and my wife's parents, they have nothing. Very small pension that my in-laws are living on in Social Security. So anything above and beyond, they need help with. But my brother-in-law always says, we argue about it, we fight about other parents. He goes, I can't wait to be that person. I'm stubborn and tell my kids, screw you, I'm not listening to you.
God. I mean,
I don't know if he's joking or
there's
not.
nothing
but-
stopping you. You could do it now.
Yeah.
It wouldn't go over very well.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I think this rabbit hole of working with this group of people, I think eventually I got to think it's going to lead me to
Oh yeah.
something of a guy. You said a book. I mean, I can't imagine myself writing a book, but like if I were to write like mini books or like little guides to navigating through this, it's going to consist of just pointers that aren't obvious, right? And like, not only should you not try and tell your parents what to do, like even avoid the suggestions, because I think those are even sometimes those are even resisted even stronger because they're not. Yeah, you're not really trying to tell me what to do, but like
Right.
You're trying to be helpful,
Hinting
and
at
I
it.
don't.
Yeah. Feels manipulative.
Stop doing that. Quit it. Cut it out. Right. And so I don't know what the alternative is there. Just it probably doesn't feel great to shut your mouth either, and like not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess
Try to
you
be
wanna-
diplomatic.
If you want to be funny about it, you could just tell them the opposite, right?
Yeah,
Of like
yeah,
you
it's-
should definitely not move.
Yep.
You should live in
mean,
this.
sometimes there's
you should
that-
live in this 3-story house forever.
Right.
That's probably not very nice either.
On your comment, I was going to add on. You mentioned about like finding a clientele in there. My personal experience with, if you take of at least 1,000 financial advisors that I've had a personal relationship with, primarily from supervisory and service role, is take out like the bottom and top, because you're always going to have one firm that just finds a brand and marketing in the independent space I'm talking about. But by and large, the most successful advisor, you take out like the top 2 or 3 and take our top 20 advisors. If you take 15 of the top 20, they found a niche of some sort, whatever it is. I'll give you an example. I had 2, we're corporate specific. One advisor in our group has a really tight connection with Mars, the company Mars.
Candy?
Yes. So he is their go-to for the last many years. He does seminars for their employees. He does training. He does all sorts of things. And when they leave, and it's a huge company that has a lot of turnover, they've got stock option plans. There's some complexities in a business of that.
He knows
size.
their RSU
Does.
back and forth.
He's just got it down, and it just rolls in. I had somebody who was with Abbott and AbbVie. He's retired as well. He was an accountant, but he just had an in there. Every new employee, he was there. He had their 401k plan, but that was part of it. He'd sit down with the new employee, and some of these were young, high-educated, high earners, didn't have a lot of money, but he would get them to save, and he built a business on that. I've had people that have worked with one accounting firm that has just consistently built business and things out of that. But if you can find, I didn't say 20 years ago, not even 20 years ago, 12 years ago, it was the advisors that did true financial planning. They just found the success was a deeper type of relationship. Everyone's getting there. My point in all this is if you can find that, if it's your niche, you will find success there. It's going to be underserved. You know this. You know it better than anybody else. And anybody who tries to dabble, for example, if you went over to the Mars and you're like, hey, I'm your new guy. You're not going to have any idea.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, hey, what about my health insurance over here? I've got this weird thing. I got this stock thing 20 years ago. What's my HSA? And he just knows it all. You know, it's a leg up.
Or the other, what do you know about our company?
Right.
I'd be like, I eat Snickers all the time. That's about it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think. I mean, time will tell, but I think the primary premise of doing this in the first place is like I lived through it, and then and it wasn't yesterday that I did it, right? So I've had time to think about, how not just how I did it, but how I would have done it differently, and how other people should navigate it. And
Well, if you're willing to be that generous, it's funny. I was just segueing what I was about to say to help somebody avoid those potholes which you've always been that way. But if you're willing to, and you offered it up to advisors, you've even done podcasts on it. You've done, for advisors to say, I'm glad I did what I did, but this is what I would have done differently to save the headaches of.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's crazy to not off because what I mean, you know, our our own estimation of what advisors should do, I definitely think is different than what the really old school
Absolutely.
estimation is.
Yeah.
Like you know which way the stock market's going,
Right.
which I as quickly as possible I try to tell people that
No idea.
nope, none. But I do firmly believe we should be as useful as possible wherever that takes us, right?
Yeah.
And so, outside of trying to be, wherever it takes us within reason,
Right.
So,
Right.
like, for me, I definitely draw the line. Like, I don't want to be a shrink. I don't have the acumen to be a shrink, but I'm pretty good at listening, and I do think that I am thoughtful insofar as trying to help figure out what needs to happen and in what order and how you should do it.
Huh?
And
good.
what better area to do that than
Financial services.
someone who's right, but within financial services, what better area for me to do that than, the two experiences that were the most difficult and require the most amount of forethought to get through without just being battered down by
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see. Hopefully I'll set the calendar for 12 months from now and we'll sit
see
back
then.
here and do this and
I just say that I heard the advisor that gave me the single. Again, this is 15 years ago, so it's still more of a sales business. As you know, we could talk all day about the evolution of our business from hiring just the greatest salespeople to true like financial planners and things like financial engineers and numbers people being financial advisors. 20 years ago, Merrill Lynch was like, I'm not hiring you. Sit in the corner, you crunch numbers. Now that's the best financial advisor. But this advisor gave me the best sales pitch. He said, once I have some basic information on people, he'd look at me in the eye and say, I know how much you make, I know how much you spend, which means I know how much you save. I also know how much you're going to need in retirement, and I can tell you the amount you're saving isn't enough. You need to invest in something. You need one thing: spend less, make more. Good luck on those two things and raising a family. Or you need to invest in something. He goes, I don't care what you invest in. Buy widgets, buy baseball cards, but you need something to get this number from here to here. He goes, I can tell you that the stock market is easily accessible. It's liquid. It's cheap. And consistently over time, semi-predictable to the point that we need. And he always says, he goes, sometimes we just buy CDs because all you need is 4%. We'll just keep you in there. We don't have to be crazy. It was just really, it was the first time, and I was pretty young, it resonated. I was like, oh yeah, it's that simple. We make it things so much more complicated, but it's really,
and I think the best three words in that guy's sales pitch were "I don't care," because
Right.
there's a level of detachment of however you get there.
Right.
And I have no skin in this game, but the only task I have is to get you from A to B. And,
Right.
And I don't within the letter of the law. I don't care how you get there.
Right.
But I'm just gonna try to find the best way.
yeah.
So
Invest in real estate, maybe if
Yeah.
you're good at that.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's get you out of here.
Oh, sorry, I didn't-
So no,
we've been
you're good.
chatting, sorry.
And
Oh, I
I
did
really
say
appreciate it. I
1:45,
know you're
yeah.
busy, man. This is really helpful for me because you're like the sounding board, and I'm thankful that I'm sitting here in Oak Brook because you pointed me towards all the things that an independent guy can do. So I appreciate
Nothing more rewarding for
all
me
the
than your
above.
success, Rob. So.
Yeah. So, 12 months from now, let's see if I have any left, and or if this is just going down the drain. So,
I like it.
thanks again, man. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Really appreciate it.
Cheers,
Great
man.
day.
We'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.